Oh. Well. Hello and welcome guys to yet another episode of Coffee with Steve, which means I am answering all of your questions which you have posted. And without too much further ado, too much talking, let's jump into this episode. So we dive into question number one, coming in from Blitz and Prancer, who's asking where to learn implementation of Golang data structures and algorithms from scratch. A very good question, my friend, and I want to say that you kind of ruined my surprise because I was on my way to publish the first video when it comes to algorithms, so get ready for that because it's coming up probably this week. So how do I answer your question, sir? Well, the best way that I've learned algorithms is obviously not on focusing on specific languages, because implementations differ from language to language because of language constructs, language features and all that stuff. And the best language you can learn algorithms from is really pseudocode, which means it's not really a programming language, it's more of a code which looks like real code, but it's not real code, which is going to teach you the best way how the algorithm works and how it will be implemented pretty much. That's why I recommend reading pseudocode from books like this one right here. I got this book, Algorithms, or I should say Introduction to Algorithms, 3rd edition. And these kind of books really help you to understand the algorithms, to understand how they really work with explanations, with pseudocode, and you can really implement your algorithms in any language you desire. So, moving on to the next question coming in from San Galanto. He says, yo Steve, I'm learning Go in my free time and I'm planning to use it to create robust web APIs. What I should learn first in terms of standard libraries? A very good question, my friend. If you're talking about web APIs, first and foremost, you need to know very well how the net package works and the net HTTP package works. Like if you know these two packages, that's already going to mean a lot. But I also recommend having a look at this specific list right here. So we're talking about net, as I said, net HTTP, context. You could also have a look at crypto because you may need that for security stuff. Also have a look at database, SQL, because you will probably have a database in your API. Also very likely you will have a look at encoding JSON, errors, IO/util, regex perhaps, stringconv, sync, time, and testing. So these are the libraries that I recommend learning before you start building robust web APIs and all that stuff. So my advice in regards to this question is try and focus on concepts, and concepts will most likely be provided by the standard library, and if and when needed, try and import a couple of third-party libraries, like libraries for HTTP router, for middleware management, for, I don't know, like Auth protocols, validators for different kinds of requests and all that stuff. And yeah, like try and import them only if you need them, only if you don't like want to reinvent the wheel and all that stuff. So this is my recommendation when it comes to I don't know, learning resources when it comes to building robust web APIs. Hopefully that answers your question. Next question comes in from Mohammed, and he asks, what makes Golang fast? So to answer this question as simple as possible, first of all, I want to say, like, quick disclaimer, Go is not the fastest language. Like if you want to achieve the top of the line performance, you would probably stick to C and C++. Now back to your question, what exactly makes Go very fast? So first and foremost, Go is very fast because of its Go scheduler, because of its built-in or in-house scheduler, which schedules Go routines, schedules these little things which run on your operating systems, which run on different cores, on different threads and all that stuff. So the scheduler which Go has built in does an amazing job when it comes to that and to distributing work efficiently and distributing work in general, and that alone makes the Go language very fast. Now speaking of distributing work, of course Go works with its internal structures. So if we're talking about Go routines, these are very tiny data structures which are built-in Go data structures, which are very small in the beginning, but they can grow. So you could say they are very memory efficient and also CPU efficient, because you can run millions of them, and you can also run them on multi-core machines. That's going to be run on multiple cores, multiple threads, and that's again very efficient. And yeah, it's pretty much fast because of the reasons that I've laid out previously, and hopefully this answers your question. question. Moving on to the next question, which comes in from Henrik Alexandre, and he asks about the role of context in web authentication requests. So context doesn't really change when it comes to authentication. It's really the same context that I've talked about in the previous episode. It's really that small box which you can throw in data and pass request specific data to downstream services. So whether it's authentication data, whether it's a different kind of data which you think is request specific data, it doesn't really matter. Context is not related to authentication. You can provide authentication data into context, but it doesn't have to be bound to authentication. Moving on to the next question, which comes in from Lucas Kidu, and he asks how to find motivation to take a personal project from start to finish. And he says, I have a graveyard of unfinished project. Man, the struggle is real. I've been through the same thing. In fact, I'm still in the same position a lot of the times because, you know, a lot of good ideas pop in my head. So Luca, I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. First of all, why? Why do you want to do what you want to do? Why do you even start this project that you started? If you succeed to answer the question why, it means you can proceed to the next question, which is what? What exactly are you trying to do? What exactly are you trying to achieve? Is this something new? Is this a solution which is going to solve something? Is this something which is required? So once you've answered the first 2 questions, the why and the what, it's time to ask yourself how. How are you going to do that? With what resources? How are you going to plan your time? What kind of a plan or roadmap you have? So this is all about the how. Like if you have made up your mind, you've decided why you do what you do, what exactly you want to do and how you want to do it. And if I've learned anything at all from YouTube, from this specific journey of mine, is that you shouldn't give up. You shouldn't be disappointed. Even though you have expectations, you should keep on pushing, you should keep on crushing. You just have to give it a little bit of patience, a little bit of work, and it's going to work out. That's why if you got projects started, make sure you ask yourself these 3 questions. And perhaps from the list of the projects you got started, you will filter out a lot of them and you'll leave the ones that matter. You'll come up with a better plan or continue with the existing plan and you will push and keep on crushing it. And remember, at the end of the day, is the hard work that matters, is the discipline. So if you don't have the discipline, you may have the best plan, but you know what they say, a plan is as good as its executor. So if you don't have discipline and commitment to the work you're trying to do, it's not going to work out, regardless of the advices that I'm going to give you or the best plan that you already got. So hopefully this answers your question. So moving on to the next question, which, as I said, comes in from the same guy, Alexandre. And he asks, how about the difference between APIs and gRPC? I believe you meant to ask what's the difference between REST APIs and gRPC. So first of all, as I said before, they are both APIs. It's just a matter of how they are implemented and how they work. Next thing about REST APIs specifically is the fact that they talk over strings over the network, like they talk over JSON most of the times. And because of that, REST APIs make the communication between services very easy. And that's why it's also very popular, because it's easy to implement a REST API as opposed to implementing a gRPC. Now, speaking of speed, of course, gRPC wins. It's about 7 times faster, if not even faster than that. Now, the reason why this is so fast is because it's using HTTP2 under the hood, so you don't really need to implement or, upgrade to HTTP2. On top of that, gRPC doesn't talk strings, it talks binary, which is much more efficient and much more lighter than, strings over the network. Now, when it comes to gRPC specifically, you don't usually implement, those interfaces and those ways that the services can communicate. You usually have code generation tools which would take your protobuf and would spit out the code necessary for the services to communicate between them. Speaking of message protocol, which helps the gRPC services communicate between them, they are using protobuf, which is something new, something different. So you would most likely have REST, which is a client-facing service, and you would have gRPC, which are services that communicate internally, and throw in that data to your REST service, and your REST service would act as a proxy and fetch all the data from gRPC specific services services which communicate over gRPC. So this is pretty much about the difference between gRPC and REST APIs. Hopefully this answers your question. I should definitely make a video on this topic because this is a hot topic, and it would be a better thing if I make a video on this with very detailed examples. And now let's move on to the next question. So the next question comes in from Iwan Mokan, and he asks, sometimes when learning something new in coding, I have an irrational fear. I want to try a new language or framework, but I'm afraid or I'm too stupid or something. Have you ever had that? If yes, how did you overcome it? Man, I'm literally struggling with that every day. Like every day when I wake up, I keep asking myself, I keep doubting myself, am I good enough? Am I doing things good enough? Am I making this video good enough? And this thing is hunting me down every single day, and I believe a lot of you can relate. So I'm gonna try to answer this question by giving you a couple of simple tips, simple things that I try to do which make me go through all this struggle a lot easier. And first of all, I want you to remember that it's okay to make mistakes. All of us make mistakes, the best of us make mistakes, so it's okay to make mistakes. And get used to making mistakes. The sooner you make mistakes, the better, or the sooner you will learn. Also, I want you to remember that 0.1 multiplied by 365 is greater than 0 multiplied by 365, meaning making the smallest effort, making the smallest steps will propel you forward to success, as opposed to not doing anything at all because you're afraid of what people are gonna think, of what mistakes you're gonna make and all that stuff. It's really not a shame, and keep on pushing, keep on crushing, and be the best version of yourself. Next question comes in from the same guy, which is getting involved, pretty active. I really appreciate that. Thumbs up for that. Give him some love, by the way. Comes in from Henrik Alexandria, and he's asking, Steve, could you please give us a general overview over OAuth and Golang main libraries to work with it? I'm not going to try to give you specific examples of libraries because it depends on implementation, it depends on the project and all that stuff. That's why I'm going to try to give you rather a more generic answer so that you can make an educated decision for yourself, for your team, and for your project. So first of all, I want to say that there are different kinds of authentication. That's why make sure you choose the right kind of authentication, like basic auth, for example, or API key, or I don't know, a bearer token, or OAuth by providing a JWT token, or different kinds of JWT implementations. Like, make sure you choose the right one which works for you, the right one which is for your specific case. Now, specifically speaking about OAuth, here are my recommendations and here are how I did things, well, according to my experience. First things first, use a bearer token, which is that little token which you will provide alongside with each request. If we're talking about REST APIs, you would accept a bearer token, and inside that bearer token, you would want to pass in a JWT. Next, I want you to use tokens and refresh tokens. Tokens, of course, for accessing specific private routes, and refresh tokens for really improving the security of your authentication. And speaking of security, I want you to use the RSA encryption algorithm, which is really there to improve your security when it comes to using OAuth. Speaking of RSA keys, make sure to store them in a safe place and make sure to rotate them quite frequently so that they don't get exposed, and even if they do, they will not be relevant information anymore because you would have rotation in place. And also make sure to expose a public key set URL on that authentication server so that it's easy for pretty much any service which depends on authentication to check those generated tokens against your OAuth server. So I guess this answers your question. These are like my very generic pieces of advice when it comes to using OAuth. We will definitely try and back this up because, as I said, this is a complicated and complex topic. That's why we need to break it down into multiple videos, and definitely a video series is coming up, so stay tuned. And finally, we have the last question coming in from Niku Mich. He's asking tips to get from June to middle, from mid to senior. Well, first of all, Niku, try and define what exactly is junior, what exactly is middle, and what exactly is senior. Because to be honest, I've been asking that myself for a very long time. What exactly I am? On what level exactly I am? Am I expecting to be promoted by the team lead, by the company, by like, does years of experience mean a lot? Because, you know, I don't have that many years of experience, and experience for me is not measured in years. Experience for me is measured in knowledge and experience when it comes to technologies, experience when it comes to the business and all that stuff. So first things first, when you are a junior, when you're coming in for the first time in a company, you'll obviously not know anything at all, or perhaps you will know very little things about the technologies which the company uses. So my first recommendation is try and nail down the tools, try and know the tools and the frameworks, the language as best as you can. Once you're in the position when you know all the tools which the company works with, try and jump into cold water. What do I mean by jumping into cold water is try and get real world challenges. Try and nail the tickets which nobody wants to do. Try and pick up the tickets which even you don't want to pick up because you think you don't have enough background, you think you're not skilled enough. Try and nail those first, because a lot of the companies will let you choose your tickets, will let you choose your challenges. That's why try and jump into cold water. Try and nail the best or the hardest challenges. This way you will learn. Yes, you may fail. Yes, it will be tough. But this way you will learn a lot more things than just picking up what you can do, picking up what you love doing, and not really getting out of your comfort zone. So get out of your comfort zone and jump into cold water. Also, if you're in the business, you have already figured out that it's a constant learning business. You always have to learn. That's why when it comes to learning, try and keep that as a constant thing. Try to always learn new things. Even though you're learning things which are not used in your company, they may be useful for your overall experience as a software engineer. They may be even useful in your company. You may suggest things. Another thing that I see a lot of senior software engineers have in common is they try to get involved into business. This really means your level of knowledge and expertise in the company's business, and when you get involved in the business, it means you take it, or they think you take it personal. They think you are getting involved more, you're part of the company, and yeah, that will place you on a higher level. So another way to bump up your level is really by switching companies, by asking for a better pay. You work for companies, you learn a lot from companies, move on, accept challenges, try and jump into cold water. There's always going to be a comfort zone where you feel comfortable with what you know, with what you do, with your level. But if you want to move up to the next level, regardless of your current level, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to jump in that cold water, which you wouldn't like in the beginning. So yeah, stay tuned and we'll see each other in the next episode of Coffee with Steve. Peace. What else was on the list? Too much coffee with Steve already. Look at this mess. This is not good. I need to clean this up. And you need to go. Oh, what? I'm gonna wrap it up. Because look at this mess. Who's gonna clean it? I have to clean it. And it's late here. You know what? I'll wrap it up. I'll see you in the next video. Get out of here, man. Look at this mess.